Hey, howdy friends, welcome to my game room again. Boy, I got myself into a major project here with this little mini documentary. I've been talking about it for some time, doing some research into the subject matter, and so I ended up with enough information to split it up into 3 episodes. So what I have for you today is episode number 1, a brief history of 5-in-a-row games. So I will segue into that narrative and hope you enjoy my little presentation here. I tried to come up with something clever, some catchy title for this series, but I couldn't come up with anything, so it's just 5-in-a-row. I suppose 5-in-a-row is going to be easier to Google than some clever title anyway, so not to worry. I was inspired by encounters with several in-a-row games recently and decided to look into the history of a few of the more recent popular 5-in-a-row games. So I started to do some research, looking in my library of game books and my collection of games, and of course looking on the internet and kind of cross-referencing things there to see what I could come up with. I decided not to talk about digital versions of 5-in-a-row games or games that may use 5-in-a-row as part of mechanics of a more complex game, and just stick with the abstract strategy games. So after collecting a file full of words and pictures on the subject, I decided to put this together, begin at the beginning as it were, and give a little background into the history of 5-in-a-row games as far as the history books can tell us. So let's set the Wayback Machine for ancient China, over 1,000 years ago. The game Weiqi has been popular for generations now and is spreading to neighboring kingdoms. The game is known as Go in Japan, and that name is used in many other countries as well. As with any such migration of ideas, regional variations abound, and as people see the game being played, they might only discern some rules and not others, or a general overview and not subtleties in the game's strategy. So when they play the game with friends, it will change a little. Eventually, other games evolved using the same equipment as Weiqi. One of these became known as Omuk, or Baduk in Korea, and Ranju in Japan, and Wuziqi in China. The object of this newer game was to place stones on the grid of the board to form a row of 5. In the usual I go, you go tradition, the players are taking turns placing the stones and trying to block each other from achieving the same goal. No one knows when exactly the game originated, mostly because there was no inventor per se. Some accounts claim that it's more than 4,000 years old. It may have reached Japan as early as 270 BC, where it was called Kakugo, meaning 5 steps. But more reliable accounts place the Japanese adaptation to about the year 1700, by which time it was recorded as Gomoku, meaning a row of 5 points. Although rules for the game were commonly known in Asia by the 19th century, the first written rules in the West were recorded in the early 1880s in England. Game publishers immediately added the exotic new Asian phenomenon to their catalogs, and they generally called the game Go Bang, a corruption of the Japanese term Goban, meaning the playing board for the game of Go. The English publishers Ayers Game Company and Jacques Games published Go Bang in 1885, and versions in America were produced by J.H. Singer and the McLaughlin brothers around 1887. McLaughlin even produced a version called Try Bang in 1889, which was a 3-in-a-row version, obviously capitalizing on the popularity of the name. By the turn of the century, Parker Brothers and Milton Bradley had their own Go Bang sets as well. The Japanese version of Gomoku took on the name Renju about 1890. Renju means string of pearls. With renewed attention through publication, players began to get more serious about the game, and the first Renju Association was organized there in 1906. They codified many of the early rules to the game, beginning to compensate for the known first-player advantage to make the game more challenging and strategy more compelling. These rules were published in English in 1931. By 1936, the official rules of the game were adopted, which still stand today for official tournament play. The Parker brothers then introduced one of their most popular games ever, around 1925, under the name Peggotty. It was pretty much an adaptation of the earlier Go Bang games, with 3 significant differences. 1. It could accommodate 4 players. 2. There were no fouls, as in Renju, nor first player restrictions. And 3. It has a catchy American name. And so that's part 1 in the series. Hope you can be with us here in a couple of weeks when I get the second installment completed and ready to show. Hope you're enjoying this little journey into the past of 5-in-a-row games. We'll be definitely talking a little bit more about Peggotty, which you can see in the background here, and how it survived generations of publication and inspired a lot of games after it was released. So meanwhile, like I always say, be sure to play every day.